She came through the door like a sitcom punchline, heels in one hand, blazer in the other, makeup just a little too smudged for the story she was about to invent. I was standing at the kitchen counter packing Tupperware with Sunday leftovers, labeling the containers like I always did. Chicken. No rice. For Monday. Then her voice. Loud, breathless, careless. I told him I'd call him later. He's probably still in the Uber. He's hilarious. You'd hate him. She threw the heels near the door. Not at the rack. Near it. Her coat hit the back of the chair and slid to the floor. I asked, "You coming to bed?" She didn't even glance at me. Just grinned like I was an annoying sound from the fridge she'd learned to ignore. He's my boss. Get over it. Then came the dagger. The one she knew would land deeper than any slap. At least he listens. Maybe try that sometime. I could have thrown the glass I was rinsing. Could have yelled. Asked questions I already knew the answers to. But no, nothing came. I wiped my hands on the towel. Nodded. Said, "Got it." As if she had just reminded me to buy milk. She rolled her eyes, already walking toward the hallway mirror to check her mascara. Still half laughing, still texting. She thought she'd scored a point. I went to the office. The real one. Behind the coat closet, behind the books she never touched, in the room she thought I only used for old invoices and retirement paperwork. She didn't know I kept a copy of every departmental card statement. Didn't know I had flagged 6 months of hotel stays, duplicate Uber charges from 2 cities at the same time, and a cab ride in Miami billed during a week she claimed she was in Houston for client onboarding. She didn't know I'd printed out screenshots, that I'd cross-referenced calendar invites with card swipes, that I'd taken the liberty of highlighting her name in 5 separate split expense approvals. She didn't know that I wasn't just operations manager. And she damn sure didn't know who the chairman used to fish with every fall at Lake Griffin. The folder was already there, labeled Policy Violations, 3rd floor, unverified. 8 tabs. 1 marked Room 617. 1 labeled Montecito Dinner, $470. The last tab, just 3 letters, HR. I drafted 1 email. No emotion, just bullet points and attachments. And 1 line in the body. Per Section 4.9b of the Company Handbook, failure to disclose material conflict of interest involving direct report personnel. Subject line, before Monday. Recipient, the chairman. I hit send, closed the laptop, and sat there for a long while, listening to her laughter echo from the bedroom. She thought she'd won something. She had no idea what game I'd just started. By the way, if you're listening this far, and you're not subscribed, maybe consider clicking that button. It helps the team keep making these stories for you. And yeah, we notice everyone. Thanks. Back in the hallway, I heard her finally close the bedroom door. I didn't follow. I turned off the lights. Opened the old drawer where I'd kept Dad's watch, the one the chairman gave him the day he retired. Underneath it, a handwritten note still rested. Use this name if you ever need help. He owes us one. It was signed with initials and a phone number. I folded it back. Didn't need to call. I had just pulled the pin. The email came in at 7:14 a.m. Subject line, noted. Body, received. Attachments reviewed. You'll hear from me soon. Please do not distribute further. That was it. No greeting, no signature, no fluff. Just enough to tell me the wheels had turned, and were already moving. I stared at it for exactly 10 seconds before hitting delete, then emptied the trash. There'd be no digital trail. Nothing to forward, nothing to subpoena. Just a memory, and a chairman who still owed my father a debt no money could settle. A debt sealed decades ago with a bottle of scotch and a bullet-sized hole in a boardroom deal that almost sank the company. I was 10 when it happened. Too young to understand the details, but old enough to remember the look on the chairman's face when Dad stood between him and the firing squad. And now, nearly 40 years later, his quiet reply felt less like a favor and more like a ledger finally being balanced. I got up, brewed coffee, grabbed the newspaper, still plastic-wrapped and damp, sat at the kitchen table with my pen and started the crossword. Clue. Silent and precise. 5 letters. Laser. I filled it in. Meanwhile, out on the patio, she was reclining in the lounger, knees up, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. Her phone glowed in her hand, the smirk never leaving her lips. Fingers tapping quick little messages, bursts of laughter every few minutes. Not the fake kind either. The real kind. The kind that rattles your bones when you know it's not for you. You wouldn't believe what he said when I got home, she texted. Like a kicked puppy with a clipboard. Ping. Can we do Saturday again? That bar in Georgetown. I'll say it's a client thing. Ping. He won't ask. He never does. She didn't know I could see the screen reflected in the patio door. Didn't know I recognized the name on her screen. Well, the nickname, anyway. Client A. Funny thing, Client A had racked up over $3,400 in conference meals in cities where our company had no events, no branches, and no booked reservations under any division. But he sure loved his seafood. And according to the expense note, he and my wife had managed to split 3 bottles of wine in one night, while allegedly closing a lead in procurement. She laughed again, louder this time. Then, to no one in particular, muttered, "Maybe I'll expense next weekend too." She thought she was untouchable. That's the thing about power. When it comes through the side door, dressed in silence and paperwork, no one notices until it's already seated at the table, carving the roast. She stretched like a cat, tossing her phone beside her, arms over her head. God, I love Sundays. I didn't answer. Just finished the crossword. Next clue. A kind of quiet punishment. 7 letters. Silence. Monday mornings at that office are usually a dull thud, coffee-fueled autopilot, passive-aggressive elevator silences, last-minute slides being adjusted in the glass meeting pods by overpaid analysts pretending to have slept. But not that Monday. That Monday, a single black folder arrived at the executive suite reception desk, hand-delivered by a courier with no name tag. The receptionist didn't even open it, just looked at the initials etched on the front, RC, and walked it straight to the chairman's office like it was radioactive. The chairman didn't ask for coffee. He didn't crack a joke or comment on anyone's weekend. He just opened the folder, read the index page, and made 3 phone calls. No one knows exactly who he called, but what we do know is this. 15 minutes later, the VP of Internal Compliance came up from the basement with a USB drive, plugged it into the chairman's laptop, and nodded once. At 8:32 a.m., an automatic calendar update hit every employee's inbox. Updated agenda. All hands. 9 a.m. Location. Company-wide. Note. Mandatory attendance. No exceptions. By 8:45, the chairman was alone in his office. He opened his email. Typed in the all employees alias. Subject. Ethics violation. Immediate review required. He attached the file, flagged, organized, highlighted, cross-referenced. It wasn't just financial evidence. It was a eulogy wrapped in Excel. The file name was brutal in its precision. 03Q. Violations _ section 4.9 _ compiled.pdf. Inside, 8 months of company credit card statements. Hotel bills marked team development in cities where we had no teams. Duplicate cab receipts submitted by 2 different people at the same time. One under her name, the other under her boss. 2 conference dinners in New Orleans. The same week, I remember sitting alone at home, watching her pack her most expensive dress, just in case the client dinner turned formal. The spreadsheet tabs had labels like Room 714, double billing. Miami Uber, 2:17 a.m., cross-flagged. Client A dined and split, no event scheduled. Every flagged line referenced section 4.9 of the employee handbook. Any undeclared relationship with a direct or dotted line superior is considered a breach of fiduciary trust and subject to immediate review. Next to each charge, initials. Next to each signature, her name. And next to each code, the phrase non-declarable relationship, suspected. The last page contained an internal audit note. Just 5 words. No record of disclosure found. At 8:48 a.m., the file had been opened by 71% of staff. By 8:49, it had been downloaded 117 times. By 8:52, it had been forwarded 263 times, with comments ranging from WTF to "Is this real?" to "Holy S, she's done." And by 8:55, the chairman's assistant entered his office and said, calmly, "Security is staged outside the executive wing." He stood, straightened his cufflinks, closed the folder. At 9 a.m., the all-hands meeting began with a simple, unmuted announcement. And it wasn't HR who spoke first. It was him, the chairman. Just 6 words. Security will now begin their rounds. At 9:17 a.m., the executive floor went still. Not quiet, still. The kind of stillness that wraps around the spine like a frozen chain. Assistants paused mid-sentence. Interns stopped pretending to staple things. Even the printer, which had been making its usual Monday racket, jammed in perfect synchronicity, as if the building itself wanted to listen. The elevator opened with a soft chime. 2 men in navy suits stepped out. No name badges, no greetings. They didn't need them. Everyone knew. Security. They didn't speak. Just walked down the hall toward the corner office. The one with the frosted glass and the stupid leather door handle he'd bragged about during a company happy hour like it was a Ferrari. Inside, her boss, her very involved, very Minter-like boss, was mid-call, gesturing with his AirPods in, grinning as if the world still belonged to him. He caught their reflection in the glass and froze. "Please hold," he said, voice suddenly smaller. The head of HR entered a second later, flanked by someone from legal who didn't even pretend to be polite. A black tote bag was already in her hands. "Pack your things," HR said flatly. "Now." No dramatics. No emotion. Just the corporate version of a guillotine's blade falling. Clean, immediate, final. He stuttered. There's been a misunderstanding. The HR rep didn't blink. "You can contest the report with legal, but you're done for today." He looked around the office, first at his assistant, who now refused to meet his gaze, then at the staff gathered just beyond the glass, their faces painted in a mix of horror, satisfaction, and pure unfiltered gossip greed. Phones were out. Pseudo-subtle photos, probably already being uploaded to Slack channels and private message threads. Look who finally got his. Then, as if choreographed, the chairman walked by. He didn't stop, didn't speak, didn't even look at the man being deposed. Just a calm, steady pace past the scene, like a surgeon walking past a body he'd already pronounced. And somehow, that was worse. That absence of acknowledgement. That clear, cold irrelevance. Her boss, her shield, her excuse, her power source, stood there for a beat too long, fingers twitching above his desk as if they could summon some alternate timeline where none of this had happened. But the tote bag was already half full. The legal rep handed him a copy of the policy, already signed by 2 board members. He looked like a man realizing the lights weren't just off, they'd been cut at the breaker. Down the hall, whispers bloomed like mold. "Did you see the report? She's next, right? Didn't they just approve an expense for Cancun last week?" At her desk, midway through a coffee she wouldn't finish, she sat frozen. Her screen still open on a vendor portal. Her phone buzzing, unanswered. Her nails clicking once, then stopping. No one spoke to her. Not yet. Because now, there was no one left to protect her. At exactly 11:05 a.m., her phone buzzed against the desk like a wasp with nowhere left to fly. One notification. From Chairman. Subject, see attachment. Attachment, policy_violation_h_annotated.pdf. No greeting. No signature. No explanation. Just those 2 words, see attachment, and the file that ended whatever illusion she still clung to. Her finger hovered above the screen, then tapped. The PDF opened. She scanned the first page, heart rate climbing. At first, it looked like a standard audit doc. Financials, dates, purchase codes. But then she saw it. Her name. Bolded. Highlighted. Repeated. Over and over. Approved by H. Kingston. Signed off by H. Kingston. Expense justification, client development, unassigned. There were yellow highlights across lines she barely remembered submitting. Uber rides at 1:42 a.m. in Boston, when she told her team she was homesick. Dinners that conveniently coincided with hotel stays. A $600 client meal in Charleston where no client was ever logged. Then came the killer, page 9. Room 717, Waterfront Suites, 2 guests, no client code assigned. Under that line, in red text, violation of Section 4.9, non-declarable relationship with direct superior. No disclosure on record. At the bottom of that page, she saw it. The one thing she hadn't prepared for. Flagged for review by internal audit per anonymous ethics submission. Her hand went cold. She tried to call him, the one who used to answer in under 2 rings no matter what room she was in. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached David, leave it." She hung up before it finished. She tried the chairman next. Maybe there was some mistake. A misunderstanding. Maybe he would take a meeting. Maybe. Blocked. The call didn't even ring. It just flashed red. She stared at her reflection in the darkened screen. Makeup perfect. Mouth slightly open. Eyes wide in a face that had finally stopped pretending. Then, out of some bitter instinct, she called one more number. Her husband's. The man who always picked up. Even when she called from hotel lobbies with stories about delayed flights and networking dinners. The man who never once raised his voice, never once asked why she came home with someone else's cologne on her blazer. The man she hadn't said, "I love you," to in at least 8 months. Voicemail. "Hey, you've reached." She let it finish this time. Didn't leave a message. Didn't have one to give. She set the phone down. Looked around the office. People were walking by, peeking in with feigned casualness. every movement now carrying the acidic weight of judgment. And her screen? Still lit. The attachment still open. Her name still glowing in yellow highlights. She closed the window, tried to delete the email. It reappeared in her inbox within 3 seconds. Auto-flagged. Company protected. Retention policy. Legal hold. There would be no deleting this. Not from the server. Not from her record. Not from memory. She was alone now. Utterly, exquisitely alone. The email she received the night before was phrased with all the sterile politeness of a surgical mask. Subject: clarification session, internal audit. Location: room 5C, compliance conference. Time: 9 a.m. Note: attendance requested. Not mandatory. Not disciplinary. Just requested. Like they were offering her coffee instead of preparing a corporate execution. Tuesday morning arrived humid and gray. The kind of air that stuck to your skin and made suits feel like shackles. She dressed carefully. Low heels, neutral tones, no jewelry. Just enough to look composed. Invisible, almost. A careful contrast to the sharp reds and deep necklines she used to wear to client dinners. She arrived at 8:58, knocked lightly, and stepped into a room that smelled like printer toner and quiet judgment. 3 chairs were already occupied. Compliance Director, Janine Hawthorne. HR Regional Lead, Paul Adams. Legal Counsel, Martin Blake. Not a smile among them. Not even a head nod. The 4th chair, the one across the table, was left precisely 1 inch out from the table. Like they expected her to hesitate before pulling it in. She did. As she sat, Janine wordlessly pushed a stack of papers across the polished surface. No names. No cover sheet. Just data. Line after line of expenses, meal codes, travel justifications, hotel invoices. All of them already familiar to her in that horrible déjà vu way, where every number was a ghost of a decision she thought no one would ever double-check. Martin broke the silence. "Can you explain these dinners?" He said it without malice, without anger, just curiosity. That was worse. She cleared her throat, already feeling the back of her neck sweat. They were work-related. Paul, from HR, tapped his pen against the table. Not aggressively, just knowingly. Janine didn't even blink. She slid 1 page forward. March 12th. You approved a $470 dinner at Beaumont for Client A. She nodded quickly, too quickly. Right, that was for regional onboarding. Martin glanced down, flipped to another page. Beaumont is in Montreal. The client listed was from our Dallas office. Her voice cracked. Maybe it was cross-division? Paul stepped in now. We checked. That client was never on board through your team. Janine leaned forward slightly. You weren't even assigned to that division. Silence. Martin continued, voice still measured. These dinners, these hotel stays, these ride shares, they all show patterns of misuse. None of them were declared as personal. All of them involved a direct report superior. You signed off on several yourself. Others were routed through your login credentials. Her hand twitched toward the glass of water in front of her, only to realize there was none. No coffee. No hospitality. No pretense. Paul folded his hands. Why didn't you disclose the relationship? She opened her mouth, closed it. Because there was no good answer. Because I didn't think anyone would notice, wasn't a defense. Because he told me it was fine, wasn't going to help her anymore. She tried one last Hail Mary. We never. Formally, it wasn't serious. Martin didn't even look up from the paper. You stayed with him in 3 cities. On the company card, Janine's voice cut through. It's not about feelings. It's about fiduciary integrity. A phrase that sounded like it came with a rope. Paul checked his watch. We'll forward this session summary to the ethics board by end of day. You'll receive next steps from legal. She started to rise. No, Janine said flatly. We're not finished. Another folder hit the table. This one thicker. Let's go through the second quarter. Her breath caught. Her knees wobbled slightly as she sank back into the chair. Outside, someone walked by whistling. Inside, she was sinking, line by line, into the hole she had dug with receipts, smiles, and hotel key cards. At exactly 2 p.m. on Wednesday, every inbox in the company pinged at once. The subject line was boring on the surface, reaffirming core values, leadership standards. Most employees assumed it was another one of those quarterly, let's all try harder blurbs from HR. Just one more digital lecture destined to be ignored. But not this one. This one was written by the chairman himself. There were no emojis, no inspirational quotes, no polished slogans or vision statements. Just one stark paragraph that read like a shot across the bow. Effective immediately, All employees are reminded that leadership integrity is our core value. Any undisclosed personal relationships involving direct or indirect reporting lines are in violation of company policy and will result in immediate disciplinary review and/or termination. Compliance with this expectation is non-negotiable. There were no names, no examples, no explicit references, but no one needed them because everyone already knew. They'd seen the email from Monday. They'd seen the photos, the expense report. The whispers had already reached fever pitch by Tuesday night. By Wednesday morning, her name was the only thing being said between sips of coffee in break rooms and Slack-side chats. And now the chairman had spoken, and silence would no longer protect her. She sat at her desk, frozen mid-scroll. She reread the memo 3 times, searching, hoping for a way to spin it, to interpret it as a general message, a warning not aimed at her. But the lump in her throat told her otherwise. Because the memo didn't need to name her. The absence of her name was the message. By 2:15, the ping started. One coworker. Hey, just checking in. You good? Another. Wait, is that about? A third, less subtle. So were you really with him in those cities? She tried not to reply, tried to focus on her calendar. But each new message hit like a small hammer, and soon her inbox looked like a slow-motion car crash. Dozens of people trying to act concerned while feeding their hunger for drama. By 3 p.m., someone had already changed the group chat name in her Teams channel from Ops Squad to Client A-Team. Slack support reverted it quickly, but not before screenshots flooded private threads. By 3:17, her cousin texted her, I just heard from someone at your firm. What the hell's going on? By 3:29, her Pilates instructor unfollowed her on Instagram. By 3:42, her phone vibrated with a message from an old college roommate. You always had a thing for power, huh? She stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. And then, at exactly 3:59 p.m., she opened each app in slow, robotic order. Facebook, deactivate. Instagram, delete. LinkedIn, hide profile. Twitter, which she rarely used, log out and uninstall. By 4:07 p.m., she no longer existed online. At least not as herself. But the whispers? Those lived on. Because even in absence, she had become the headline. The woman who tried to sleep upward. The name behind the memo. The policy violation in heels. Her screen flickered with one last message from a junior analyst she barely knew. HR just booked your meeting room for tomorrow. Should we reschedule Teams Sync? She didn't reply, because she knew there would be no Teams Sync. Not anymore. She arrived an hour early. Hair pinned back. Blazer pressed. Minimal makeup. That, I'm here to resolve this professionally, look she'd always seen as her armor. She even rehearsed phrases in the mirror that morning. I take full responsibility. I see where things got misconstrued. We can clear this up in person. She didn't want a lawyer. She wanted control. And to her, that meant one thing. Facing the chairman face to face. Reclaiming the narrative. Spinning it into something survivable. She imagined herself sitting across the mahogany table in his office, explaining it all in a firm, polished tone. Not groveling. Just clarifying. But the lobby never let her in. The receptionist, someone new, some 20-something intern who had no idea who she used to be, barely looked up when she walked in. Just asked for her name. Typed. Paused. Typed again. Then frowned. I'm sorry, your badge isn't showing as active. She pulled the lanyard from her purse and scanned it anyway. Nothing. A small red light blinked with a chirp that somehow sounded smug. I have a meeting, she said. The receptionist tried again. There's no appointment scheduled under your name. Her mouth tightened. Then call upstairs. I'm not allowed to. Call upstairs. She leaned in now, voice clipped, the kind of voice she used to use on interns who forgot to book her flights in business class. The chairman, or HR, tell them I'm here to resolve this. That was when the second door opened. Not the one to the elevators. The one near the back, labeled security, admin access only. He walked out slowly. Broad frame, clipboard in hand, black polo shirt with a radio on the belt. Not aggressive, but not casual either. The kind of presence that only steps in when the system has already decided something behind closed doors. He addressed her calmly. Ma'am, you've been instructed to remain off company premises until notified otherwise. She blinked. Excuse me. He handed her a sealed envelope. Effective immediately, your employment is suspended pending legal review. Her breath caught. I haven't even been formally terminated. You may request representation through legal. Details are inside. This is ridiculous, she hissed. You don't even know what happened. I don't need to, ma'am. I was just told to deliver this. She tore open the envelope right there. 2 pages. One from HR, one from legal. Section 4.9 violation, pending investigation. Access revoked. Workstation locked. Office belongings to be collected by appointment only, with security present. She felt heat rise behind her ears. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but rage. Humiliation. This is absurd. I gave 10 years to this place. The guard remained unmoved. I don't disagree, ma'am, but this isn't my call. She whipped around toward the glass front doors, and that's when she saw them. 2 coworkers. From her floor. One was the junior analyst who used to bring her reports late on Fridays. The other? The woman who had trained under her 3 years ago. They weren't inside. They were out front, holding coffees, watching through the glass. The junior analyst leaned closer to the other, and though she couldn't hear the words, she saw the smirk, the head shake, the whisper. She thought she was special. The phrase landed like a slap. That's when she realized this wasn't a scandal anymore. It was a story, and she had become its punchline. Friday morning came draped in forced normalcy. The weekly sync call went out as usual, 9 a.m. sharp. Agenda, division metrics, regional compliance updates, a vague, organizational transition briefing. Nothing out of the ordinary. No hints. No warnings. Just a sterile, recurring invite in Outlook with the same 3 smiling emoji from the HR coordinator who always tried too hard to be upbeat. But this time, the meeting wasn't being hosted by her. She still joined. From home, hair pulled into a tight bun, face pale, lips drawn into a thin line. The camera was on. The mic was muted. She didn't dare speak. Not yet. At 9:01, the director of operations started things off, too cheery, like a man trying not to laugh at a funeral. Good morning, everyone. Before we get into regionals, we'd like to welcome a new addition to today's call, a special consultant appointed by the board to assist with ethics transition and departmental oversight. A pause. Please welcome Harold Kingston. There was a flicker. Then his camera turned on. Her husband. Hair neatly combed. Crisp shirt. Neutral background. Calm eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. A silence swept through the call. Digital, but absolute. For a moment, even the ones who had tried to defend her online, the ones who insisted she was being railroaded, went quiet. Because now they understood. This wasn't just HR cleanup. This was design. Her camera, still on, captured her reaction live. She didn't move. Didn't speak. Eyes locked on the screen, jaw slack. Her hand drifted up like she was going to say something, maybe unmute, maybe object. But the system got there first. Muted by host. Then, a second later, removed from call. Just like that. Gone. No explanation. No address. No farewell. Just a silent extraction in front of 86 logged-in employees, most of whom would spend the next hour messaging each other things like, was that his wife? Wait, wasn't he the one she? Holy S, that was cold. But none of them would dare say anything publicly, because now he was in the room. Her replacement, installed by the board, titled like an afterthought, special consultant, but wielding the quiet gravity of someone who didn't ask for respect because he no longer needed to. The call continued. Metrics. Announcements. A new procurement process. A revised ethics disclosure form. Now mandatory, now tracked with quarterly audits. She never rejoined. And later that day, alone in her apartment, her hands trembling over the keyboard she no longer had access to, she finally typed the message. Just one line. I didn't know you'd do this. He read it. Didn't reply. Not because he was angry. Because there was nothing left to say. She had gambled with silence, power, and public perception. He answered in kind. Sunday afternoon dripped by in slow motion. Light poured through the blinds and slats across the floor of her apartment. Silent, accusing. The TV was off. The phone was face down. Even the refrigerator hummed like it was trying to avoid her. She hadn't showered. Her shirt still smelled faintly of whatever perfume she used to wear when she was trying to impress boardroom crowds. Now it was stale, like everything else. She sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop in front of her, knees pulled in tight, the way she used to sit when she was in college, cramming for finals she always aced. But this wasn't a test, and there was no way to pass it. Her inbox sat empty. No new messages. No follow-ups. Not even a spam email about flash sales or political surveys. Just the one she hadn't been able to delete. The one she kept reopening like some twisted form of self-harm. Subject: reaffirming core values, leadership standards. From Chairman. She clicked it open again, even though she could recite every word by heart now. The tone was measured. Formal. A reminder of integrity, leadership, policy adherence, values. All the things she once weaponized to climb faster than her peers, now sharpened into a mirror. And at the bottom, beneath the HR signature block and the legal disclaimer, was the final line. The one that kept hitting her like a cold slap every time her eyes found it. We thank the anonymous contributor whose ethical clarity upheld our values. Loyalty isn't loud, but it is lasting. She stared at those words until the edges of the screen blurred. Anonymous. But not really. She knew who sent it. Of course she did. He hadn't yelled, hadn't ranted, hadn't even asked her for the truth. He'd just stepped aside and let her destroy herself in front of the entire company, one PDF line at a time. Her finger hovered over the mouse. She scrolled back up, opened the attachment again. Her name, still there, underlined, next to every flagged expense, every approval, every late-night ride share. The timestamps told their own story. So did the signatures. Over 300 forwards. That was the last count she'd seen before the file was locked. She wondered how many screens her name had appeared on, how many private group chats had screenshotted it, how many jokes had been made over drinks she no longer got invited to. She closed the file, closed the laptop, and sat there. No more knocks at the door. No buzzing intercoms. No texts asking her to explain. No requests for her version of the story. No job. No leverage. No audience. She had used power like a toy, flirting with it, playing dress up with it, assuming it loved her back. But power doesn't love. It keeps receipts.